What is happening, YouTube? Welcome back, guys, to Nightcrawler TV. Thanks for tuning in, and to all the people that have recently subscribed to the channel, thank you so much, guys. I really do appreciate it, so thank you for that. Right, in this latest episode, we're going to delve into the murder of Thomas Campbell. Thomas Campbell was a very prominent drug dealer who was very brutally murdered in the small town of Mossley in Greater Manchester back in 2022. Now, just before we get into it, I just want to say I didn't know Tom personally, but I did used to see him from time to time in a couple of the local gyms in the local area. I never spoke to him, but I did see him a bit when we both happened to be in the gym at the same time. He was into his weightlifting and bodybuilding. We did have a couple of mutual friends, but me personally, I never knew him on a personal level. When I did see him in the gym, he seemed decent. He seemed a decent enough lad. He wasn't overly loud or obnoxious or anything like that. He looked in good, decent shape, and you could tell he was proper into his gym and training and that. I just wanted to throw that out there, guys, before we talk about what eventually happened to Tom. Now, what happened to Tom was brutal. His very last moments of life were definitely unimaginable terror. He was tied up, stabbed, battered, then burned with hot water and an iron while being tortured for over 2 hours. Honestly, guys, it was an absolutely horrible, horrendous death. Thomas Campbell was a convicted drug dealer whose criminal past dated back more than 2 decades. In 2002, aged just 19, Campbell was sentenced to 9 years in prison after playing his part in a robbery conspiracy, which involved the use of weapons, including a samurai sword. It was after this prison sentence in 2008 that he met Colleen Campbell, who he would go on to marry and have children with. Thomas and Colleen married in 2011, and they had 2 children together in 2010 and 2015. Despite getting married and having kids, Thomas was still very active within the criminal underworld. Police intelligence logs allege that Campbell was involved in cannabis and cocaine dealing for more than a decade between 2010 and 2021. Intelligence also claims that he played a major part in an organised crime gang involved in cocaine trafficking from 2013 to 2021. And in 2019, even his wife Colleen was found to be helping him in his criminal operations. So guys, just to be clear up to this point, Thomas Campbell was not just some low-level scally street dealer. He was a major player who was absolutely raking the cash in. Thomas and Colleen were eventually jointly charged with money laundering after enjoying a jet-set lifestyle, expensive cars and home improvements, all funded by dirty money. The couple splurged £10,000 on just one particular holiday. They also had a double-storey extension to add a bar and bigger kitchen at their house in East Manchester, and they also spent an absolute fortune on designer clothes, Rolexes and jewellery. A judge ruled that they had benefited from crime to the tune of £100,000 over just a 2-year period. Further intelligence suggested Campbell had access to phones on the infamous EncroChat communications network. As a lot of you might already know, EncroChat was used by a lot of criminals in the underworld, as it was thought to be a safe way of communicating and networking a criminal business. Obviously, that isn't the case anymore. The police can now hack into EncroChat, and this has led to the downfall of a lot of high-level criminals recently. So at this point, Thomas Campbell was very worried that the police hacking of EncroChat was going to land him back in prison. So what he did was he actually moved to Marbella and then to even to Dubai for a while in the previous years before his murder. Now, what Thomas also did was he used to bury drugs and money underground, and he actually had a large amount of cash buried in his back garden at his new house in Mossley, which is where he was murdered. Now, the motive of Thomas's killers is that they said they wanted to steal all the money that Thomas had buried in his back garden. His killers said in court that they wanted his buried treasure without having any intention of hurting him. Right, now let's fast forward to 2022. At this point, the marriage between Thomas and Colleen had broken down for whatever reason. The relationship was over. This was Thomas's decision. He didn't love Colleen anymore. He wanted nothing to do with her. He wanted her out of his life and he wanted to move on and start afresh. Colleen wasn't happy about this. She was bitter. She was angry. And she was jealous because, as it turns out, Thomas, very soon after dumping Colleen, he began a new relationship with a new girl he met. Now, Tom's new girlfriend happened to be the ex-girlfriend of another Manchester drug dealer called John Belfield. Now, John Belfield, just like Colleen, was not happy about his ex-lover moving on and shacking up with someone else. So what we've got here, guys, is basically two very sad, bitter and jealous people in Colleen Campbell and John Belfield. Two absolute sad cases who just couldn't stand being dumped and seeing their ex-partners getting with other people. So Colleen Campbell and John Belfield conspired and plotted together to get revenge on Thomas Campbell. Colleen gave John Belfield vital information on Thomas's business dealings, the money he had hidden, and his comings and goings and whereabouts on the day of his murder. Colleen and Belfield were setting Tom up to be robbed and murdered. Shortly before his torture and murder, Tom had only recently purchased a new house on a classy upscale estate in Mossley, Greater Manchester, and he was ready to start a new chapter in his life with his brand new girlfriend. On July the 2nd, 2022, John Belfield recruited two accomplices, Rhys Stephen and Stephen Clayworth, to aid him in ambushing and attacking Thomas Campbell. On that night, the three men cut Tom's life short in the most brutal, appalling and disgusting way. Belfield, Stephen and Clayworth stormed into Tom's home and began a brutal 2-hour torture. They beat Thomas mercilessly. They stripped him naked and poured boiling water all over his body. They burned him with a red-hot iron. They dragged him around every room in the house. When police entered the scene the next day, every room in the house was drenched in blood. They gouged out his eyeballs. They even cut off his penis and rammed it into his mouth, forcing him to chew on it. Guys, honestly, this was an absolutely horrific crime. And you've got to remember, in the small town of Mossley, nothing has ever happened like this before to this magnitude. So when this occurred in the small town of Mossley, honestly, this really did horrify and rock the community. Tom was found the very next day by a neighbour who noticed the front door of his house had been smashed in, basically. Thomas was found in the hallway, naked, apart from just a pair of socks, tortured to death. His ankles were bound together with duct tape. The attack on Thomas Campbell took place just after 11 p.m. on July the 2nd, 2022. In the hallway where Tom lay dead, he was on his back, with his head rested on the first step of the stairs. In court, the pathologist confirmed that Mr. Campbell had 61 injuries consistent with being stamped on, kicked, stabbed, strangled and scalded. After murdering Tom, Belfield and his accomplices never did dig up the garden and take the buried money. All three men were eventually convicted and sentenced at Bolton Crown Court. Rhys Stephen was convicted and sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 37 years. Stephen Clayworth was jailed for life with a minimum term of 12 years. And John Belfield, the mastermind behind the murder, has since been sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 37 years. And Thomas's scorned ex-partner Colleen Campbell, well, she's been sentenced to 13 years after being found guilty of manslaughter and conspiracy to rob. I just want to say at the end of this, rest in peace to Thomas Campbell. And my heart truly does go out to Tom's two young children who have lost both their parents in all this. the dad murdered, and the mum now in prison. Truly, truly awful and heartbreaking for those two kids. I really do feel for him. And all because of greed, jealousy and ego, basically. Just, yeah, it's horrible, guys. So, thanks for watching, everyone. I really do hope you enjoyed the latest video. Please give us a like and a subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, guys, be safe and do take care out there. I'll see you all very soon for another episode on Nightcrawler TV. Take care, everyone. Till next time.